Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. It's been a really nice week here. It's still cold, but it's not as bad as it has been this past weekend. We got a lot of snow, like I know a lot of other people did, but it was the perfect weekend for staying in and watching movies and just getting some crafting done. So it was really nice. And then yesterday was Valentine's Day. If you did something, I hope you had a really nice day. If not, I still hope you had a really nice day. We actually didn't do anything yesterday because Dennis was busy with his soccer, but the night before we went out for a nice family dinner, so that was very nice. Avery chose the restaurant. She was very happy. Yesterday she got a few treats, so it was a nice week all around. So what do I have for you today? I have a bunch of progress on projects you've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, and then I also dug out another project, one of my long-term projects, and this week it totally took over. I would have been perfectly happy working on only that project this week, but I did make myself work on other things. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a quick sip of my tea. I've got tea again in my lovely friend's mug, and it is a chocolate cake tea from Seven Sisters Tea. I am doing a very good job at working through my coffees and teas in my cupboard, so I'm hoping within the next couple of maybe the next couple of weeks, I don't know, we'll see. I might be able to do a new order because I've mentioned before that I'm trying to use what I have household wide, and it's been very, very satisfying. I have to say, every time you use something up, it is very satisfying. So yeah, that is what I'm drinking today, and let's get started with the knitting. I think I'm going to start with the Catacorn sweater. I made some really, really good progress on this week. Last time I showed it to you, I was working up the back, and I had just a little bit of the tail chart done, and I have completely finished the back now. So that's the back, there's the complete tail chart. I have also seamed it to the front, so again there's the front with the Catacorn. I have attached the ribbing for the neckline, and I have seamed up the sides. So because this, the front chart was in tarja, you did the front and back separately and then seam them together at the shoulders before doing the collar and the armholes. Technically, with the order of the pattern, the sleeves would have been done before the neckline, but because I am working with a very set amount of yarn, I wanted to get the neckline done so that I know exactly how much yarn that I have left that I'm working with, and then I can do the sleeves accordingly. So yeah, the sides are all seamed up with mattress stitch. I love doing mattress stitch. And then it kind of plays in with the arm sizing. It plays in with the whole sizing thing that I've been discussing. So Avery is 7 years old, but often with sweater sizes, she falls closer to the size 4 in terms of like circumference and width. Her chest size is around a size 4. So I did a little bit of a hybrid with the sizing with this sweater. I cast on the size 6 number so that it would be nice and wide and kind of flowy on her. And then after I finished the chart on the front, over several rows, I decreased stitches to get down to the size 4 stitch count for around the chest area. And I did the same thing on the back. After I finished the chart, there was a bunch of plain knitting, and I gradually, over I think 3 different times, I think I ended up just decreasing about 6 stitches. I got down to the size 4 stitch count for the shoulder shaping and around there. And then also I brought in the size 4 sizing. So once you're done the front and the back, what you do is you just seam up the sides, and the arms are just picked up around. So depending on how big you want your sleeves to be is how much room you would leave open. So in the pattern, Stephanie states that like she gives the amount of room to leave for each size, but she says it's a fitted garment. If you want the arm size to be a little bigger, a little looser, then choose a different amount of inches that you would leave this open. So I have done a size 4 opening because Avery's arms are teeny weeny. So yeah, it's a kind of a combo between the 4 and the 6, but I tried this on her yesterday when she got home from school just to make sure before I picked up the stitches for the sleeves that it was going to be a good fit around the arms for her, because it would be much easier at this point to pick back a little bit and make the arms bigger or make the arms smaller than if I put the sleeves in and then figured out that it was not a good size and then had to undo all that. So I put it on her yesterday. The length looked good, the width looked good, everything looks like it's going to fit her really nicely. And all I have to do now is the sleeves, and that should be easy breezy. I don't think that's going to take very long. I have mentioned before that I wasn't sure how much yarn I would have left after doing the body. I started off with one big skein of the Miss Babs Yowza, and there's 560 yards in there. This is what I have left after doing the front and the back and all the splitting and untarja and stuff, and each of these is almost, like, give or take, around 30 grams. So that works out really nicely because I can use one of these for each sleeve, knowing that it's about the same. I think honestly that would be enough to do the sleeves to a length that I would be happy with, but I am still considering, I had mentioned this as a possibility, I am still considering incorporating a little bit of this yarn, like maybe 3 stripes along the top of each sleeve. So like, you know, a purple stripe, some gray, purple stripe, some gray, and then another purple stripe before going into mostly gray for the rest of the sleeve. I think it still might be kind of cute to bring in this color, even though I don't necessarily need it for the length. I think I still might do that because Avery loves purple and pink. And there's not a whole lot of purple and pink in this sweater other than in the horn, and then I did use that yarn at the tippy top there, so it would kind of bring that in and it would just add a little more purple to the sweater. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting those started and getting that done. Hopefully I might be able to have that as a finished object next week. That would be really nice. I think she's going to get a lot of wear out of it. I think it will really go well with a lot of the leggings that she has, and it's going to be really cute. So yeah, so that's my progress on the Caticorn sweater. I think now I'm going to talk about my sock progress, and then I'm going to be going into the other project that has just captured my attention and I've been wanting to put all my time into. And then after that, I actually have a spinning snafu to talk about. My spinning has been held up by something. I have a little Mr. T story time. Oh my goodness, he's been such a booger this week. But yeah, I have that, and then yeah, we have a little chat. This is a chat week, so I forgot to mention that in the beginning. At the end, there's a little chat, and I have something fun planned that was inspired by Steph over at the Knitting Samurais and her guys podcast. So let's get to the socks. So the 2 socks that I have been working on this week have been my DVD February socks for the Desert Vista Dyeworks Challenge, and then also my Lisa Ross Lots of socks for the Lots of Socks KAL. So let's start with my Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. The last time I showed these to you, I was almost done the first sock, and then I was showing you the tool, the measuring tool that I was using, so I left the toe open. I have since finished the first sock. So here is my first sock finished here. I've got my little toe done. I've got my Kitchener done. I actually don't mind doing Kitchener for top-down socks, but I still dislike these little points you did. I did the thing where you don't do the setup stitches at the beginning and the end to kind of reduce those little points, and I mean, it's not as bad as if I had done the setup stitches, but it's still not as nice as my toe-up toe. I wish I could figure out a way to replicate the way I do my toe-up toe, top-down. I'd be a happier toe knitter then. But so the sock is done. And the pattern that I'm using for this pair is the Jangles sock, and I wanted to try it because it was top down, and I really wanted to try some top down patterns just to get a really nice fit for some of these gift pairs that I'm knitting. So this pair is going to be for my brother's girlfriend, and I really do like the heel of this sock. So you're basically doing ribbing down as far as you want the leg, and then you start doing these increases along either side with the ribbing continuing, and then you get to a point and you do your heel turn, and then your gusset decreases. And I think it lends to a very attractive looking sock, and I think it would fit very well. I'm actually planning on trying this pattern again for myself, but I will have to do I will have to increase some stitches to get the socks to fit the way I like it. The stitch count, the largest stitch count in this pattern is 76 stitches, and I know for myself I would have to do at least 80 for the leg to fit the way that I want it to. Now, I did want to say, Vanessa from A Historian Knits podcast made the comment on last week's video that the heel looked like the striping, the striping continued very nicely even with the heel. And I did forget to mention last week that I did a little something with the heel, nothing major. What I really like about the way this heel was constructed is that it didn't really affect the width of the stripes as I went down. So I knit straight with one length of yarn all the way up to the heel turn here. So you can see going across that these stripes, while they might get a little bit thinner, they really haven't been affected too drastically. Sometimes with striping yarns and heels that where you increase the stitches to prepare for your heel and your gusset, the stripes can get quite narrow and it can be quite obvious that something's going on in that area, and I found that this was really nice and smooth. Now, for the heel turn, because you're just working back and forth in this whole area before you join in the round around there, for this sock what I did is I just continued with my working yarn through the whole heel turn, and then when I got to where I was joining in around again, I did pull off a length of yarn to get back to the color that I left off with, because otherwise there would have been a jarring difference where I joined in the round again. The striping sequence would have been off, and the stripe there would have been different. So I did take off a length of yarn. Now what I think I'm going to do for the second sock is do what I've done with other socks, where I pull from the other end of the cake to do this little flap so that I don't have to pull off extra yarn. In this case it worked out because I think the amount that I pulled off is going to be enough to do the little square on my mitered square blanket, so it will get used. But otherwise you would just have this tiny little ball of yarn that wouldn't necessarily be enough for any use. So for the second sock I am going to pull from the other end of the cake, but that is why after this point the stripes continued. I did do a little bit of yarn management at the back in the heel there. But otherwise I'm really happy with this pattern. I think these socks are going to fit really, really nicely. And as I've said before, the way I try to avoid second sock syndrome is I cast on the second sock right away. So I finished that toe last night, I did up my Kitchener, I wove in my ends, and then I immediately cast on the second sock, and then I've been working on it a little bit this morning as well. And this is what I have done. I've got my ribbing done. Now I have probably another 4 inches of ribbing to go before I can start the sequence, the changes in the pattern to accommodate the heel. And then the other thing I did that I've mentioned before is I rewound my cake so that the stripes go in an opposite direction. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to notice just yet with the amount that I've done, but the stripes are going in the opposite direction to this sock. This is something I have just found recently that I really, really like to do. It makes it so that the socks, it doesn't matter if the socks match because they're not going to match. So you don't have to really go out of your way to make them mismatched socks and then worry about them being just like one stripe off and looking like you unintentionally, didn't match them. They're just not going to match, but they still look like a really, really nice pair together. So I did that after I finished my sock last night. I went over to my ball winder and I just rewound it in the opposite direction. And now I am working on my second sock. And I mean, I got most of this done this morning. I find if I just, put on some podcasts and knit away, I think this will go really fast. I'm hoping that over this weekend, I'll be able to get at least down to where I start the heel, and then it should be all set for finishing this pair for the end of the month. The other pair of socks that I was working on is my Lots of Socks socks by Lisa Ross, and this is for the KAL that she is running in support of the Down syndrome charity. And I actually got a pretty good amount done on this pair as well, considering it is a pattern sock. It's not color work in terms of stranding, it is mosaic knitting, but still it takes a little bit extra, and I tend to work a lot slower on these types of socks than just vanilla socks. So I feel like I did a pretty good job on this week. You can see, right, that's about where I was when I showed it to you last, my little fish in the fishbowl. And I have been able to do all of this knitting. So I was able to finish the leg, put the heel flap and gusset in, do the gusset decreases, and get back to working on the foot. And the pattern that is used in this sock is very, very easy to memorize. So while I did find working this whole section here was a little strenuous on my brain. There was just a lot of things to do. It seemed like the heel flap took forever. This is why I like the German short row heel. It's just such a quick and easy heel to pop in, and then doing anything different just seems to take like 2-3 times as long. So it seemed to take forever to do this heel flap, seemed to take forever to put the little turn in and to do all these little gusset. I do think that this is really pretty, but it just seemed forever to do the little gusset decreases. But once I've joined back in the round, it's back to that very nice short pattern repeat that is very easy to do. I took this to skating lessons this week. It was no problem to do. So this is one, if you're not doing something where you actually have to follow numbers and worry about decreasing stitches and stuff, this pattern is actually very travel friendly. So yes, I am happy where I am with this pair. However, there has been a development. Originally, I had talked about how I was planning on making these socks for myself. I thought this color in particular would go very nicely with some of the pieces in my wardrobe. But yeah, there's been a change. Top-down socks, actually not just top-down socks, colorwork socks in particular, I have learned that I like to fit a certain way. And in general, I do like my socks to fit a certain way. I like the cuffs to be a little bit loose. I like to just be able to pull on my socks. I don't like them too snug. I like to wear them over my leggings. So I like them to fit a certain way. And the cuff, while it is loose enough for me, like it's not tight on my leg, it doesn't fit the way I want it to. And then also with color work, quite often in patterns that involve stranding or even slip stitches, we'll ask you to use a bigger needle for the color work section just because it does create a less forgiving fabric. It doesn't stretch as much as just plain knitting. Well, I am stubborn. Now, I did take this into account, but I'm still stubborn. I don't like using bigger size needles for my socks. I like the fabric that a 2mm needle gives. That is just, I like that fabric. I find when I use bigger needles and I get a looser gauge, I just don't like how they fit on, or how they feel on my feet. So to kind of account for that with this pair, I did go up to the largest size. So there's several sizes in this pattern, and I went up to the largest size, which in theory is larger than what I would need to fit my foot and my leg. However, they don't fit as loosely as I would like. So while I can get these on my foot and it is fine, they don't feel the way I like socks to feel. So, long story short, these socks I think are going to go to my brother's girlfriend as well. I know she really likes this color in particular, and because she has much slimmer feet and much slimmer legs, and she's smaller all around, I think these will fit her quite comfortably. So I'm going to be doing the foot to her size, which works out for me because it ends up being a shorter foot length. It will be done faster. And then I might try these again for myself. And I haven't decided yet if I want to use both of the yarns that I'm using for this or just one of them for mine. I'll have to see how much yarn is left. My accent color, I don't know, main color, I forget in the pattern if this is the main color or the accent color, but maybe the main color. This is an Art Fill Bell that I got in a swap. And then for my accent color, I am using this sock blank from Stranded Yarns. So it is very pretty, and I'm still in this very blue section. It's going to be interesting. That second sock is going to be quite a bit different. But yeah, so I am using this sock blank as the second yarn, and I really do like how the effect of the sock blank mixed in with the semi-solid, which is why I'm not sure. While I like how this looks, I don't know how I'd feel about knitting two pairs of socks back to back in the exact same yarns. I think I would need a little variety, but I do like how those look together, and I do like the effect of using a sock blank. So I might either use this yarn and a different sock blank, or this sock blank and a different main yarn for mine, and just see how that looks. The one thing I will say is that this yarn here is noticeably thicker than the sock blank yarn. So while I think with blocking it'll be fine, I can definitely tell while I'm knitting it that the burgundy yarn is thicker. So I think it'll be okay, but ideally I think if I were to make these again, I would make sure that the two yarns were like the same kind of fingering. Even though these are both fingering, like sometimes 80-20s, like different blends of sock yarn, depending on the amount of nylon, can be slightly thinner or slightly thicker. I would make sure that they were closer together in thickness. So, but yeah, I'm happy with how those are going as well, and I don't know when I'm going to finish this pair. I don't think I'm going to finish these by the end of the month, just because there's so many other projects that I really want to finish by the end of the month. But I'm hoping it won't take longer than, you know, the end of next month to finish this pair. So yeah, those are the progress on these socks. So the final project that I've been working on this week that has just captured my attention has been my Granny Stripes blanket. I haven't touched this probably since around Christmas time, when I was trying to put some of my Advent minis into it, and then I decided that's not what I wanted for my Advent minis, and I kind of put this aside. Something about this week, maybe it was the weather and just, you know, we were on the couch, we were watching movies a lot this weekend. We watched all 3 of the Back to the Future movies. Avery really enjoyed them. There was something about just being cozy on the couch. This was the project I wanted to work on. And then once I started working on this, this is all I wanted to work on even during the week, and I had to make sure I put it aside to work on the other things. So I have, as one of my goals on my bingo card this year, is to catch up on my Granny Stripes blanket. And so what I mean by that is I have this basket. It's a really fun basket that I got with a gift card from my godmother Burn Dinky Burn from Pier 1, and this is where I put all my little scraps that are to go into my Granny Stripes blanket. And to catch up this year, I want to use all the yarns that are in this basket. These are all the yarns that have been in other projects. I do have one bag here from a Swapless Swap from Unwind Yarns that I want to put in, but otherwise it's just all leftover yarns. And so to catch up, I mean, I want to use all of these yarns so that by the time I get to next Christmas and I have my new Advent swap packages, and then also any new yarns from projects this year, I'm going to put those separately for now. These are just from previous years. I want to put all of these into my blanket before going forward. So this is what I need to empty this basket in order to check that box off saying that I've caught up on my Granny Stripe blanket. So this might still look like it is absolutely filled with yarn, but this was like, here, I'll try and even it out. This was like over the surface with yarn. So the yarn was like ballooning out of this basket before I started working on this blanket this past week. So I actually put quite a bit of work into this blanket, and I will show you where I left off. So I left off when I got back to working on it. I think I had just finished putting in this row with like this kind of dark purple, and I have added all of that this week. And this is quite a wide blanket. This goes across our queen size bed. So you can kind of follow, I think the easier color to follow would be that red stripe. That's the first one I put in after restarting it. But this is quite a wide blanket, and I have done quite a few inches with new yarns on it. See, it's still going. So there we go. And then there's the end there. So I have added quite a bit to this blanket. I've been really, really enjoying it. I've been really excited every time I sit down to pick a new yarn out of the basket. I have yarns in there that are different amounts. So some I know will go right across the row. Some are good for if I'm working on a yarn and I end kind of in the middle of the row. I'll look for a smaller ball to get me to the end. I have learned that I don't like, you can kind of see in some places earlier in the blanket where I've just used the yarn until it runs out, and then you get these sections where there's 2 rows of one color. I've kind of figured out that I don't like that as much. So I prefer when there's just the one row of one color. The only time that doesn't apply is if I'm working with a striping yarn, because I find even if I go back over on the second row, usually the colors don't line up exactly, so it looks like it's a different yarn even though it's the same yarn, because the colors will kind of stack. But yeah, if I get to the end of the row and I'm not done with that piece of yarn that I have, sometimes I will break it and join a new yarn and save the rest for another part of the blanket. I don't mind if the yarns are used more than once in the same blanket. Or in the, yeah, I don't mind if they're repeated, but I don't want 2 rows of the exact same color. That's what I figured out. But yeah, I really enjoyed this blanket, and I will probably be working on it some more this weekend and get some more work on that. I'd really like to empty that basket. And then also this weekend, I'm going to have to be working on my Desert Vista Dyeworks sock, because those absolutely have to get done by the end of the month. So that's the progress I've been making on my projects this week. I am really, really happy with where things are going. So before I get to kind of the fun part of this episode, the question and chat segment, I just wanted to share with you a little my spinning snafu. So I've mentioned in previous episodes that I am currently working on a spinning project for Vanessa from the A Historian Knits podcast. She sent me some row legs that were sent to her by a friend. She does not spin. I am spinning them for her, as well as some of my own row legs to make enough for a project. So I am on the part of that project where it's the same yarn. It's just, there's a lot more of it, so it's just taking me longer because it's just not as interesting as when you have a whole bunch of different little row legs that kind of change colors and change interest. However, this week I went to spin and I could not, and I'm going to have to delay my progress a little bit because of Mr. T. I'm going to blame Mr. T. Now, I can honestly say that it is very possible that it's not because of him. It's just ended up looking like it could be him, but let's just say it's Mr. T, because he's been such a bugger this week. So there was this incident here that I'm about to show you. And then also, I was working on my catacorn sweater yesterday, and I was working with that cream yarn, and we all know the infamous cream yarn, right? Do you remember the unicorn? It's the same yarn that I used to make that unicorn, and he kept stealing the body of the unicorn, and I had to make a second unicorn body because he kept stealing the first one. There's something about that yarn. He kept stealing it from my bag, and I'd have to zip it closed, and then I was working with it, and then he snatched it and ran off with it, and then I was done with it, so I had, like, you know, snipped it off from my project. I had put it in away in the bin. He dug it out of the bin, and he ran off with it. I put it back further in the bin and tucked the bin, like, right back so that he couldn't just, you know, reach in and get it. He pulled the bin out, he dug into it, he pulled that yarn out, he ran off with it. He has just been a bugger this week. I think I'm going to have to make him another toy with it since I don't have any other plans. But back to my spinning snafu. I have mentioned in previous episodes, I think, with like my scissors, I have some rubber scissors, that Mr. T really likes rubber. There's something about rubber that he really likes. We have to make sure there are no rubber bands lying around because he will eat them. Don't even get me started on that. So yeah, he really likes rubber. If you are familiar with some spinning wheels, not all of them would use rubber components, but I have a Magic Craft little gem, and there is an upper drive band that kind of makes the bobbin move, and then there's a lower drive band which, I don't know, makes something else move. But one is a thick rubber cord and one is a thin rubber cord, and I have caught him before kind of paying attention to the upper drive band, the thinner one, and I've always kind of shooed him away. Well, this week, this is what I found next to my spinning wheel. This is the upper drive band, split in 2 pieces, and it was on the floor beside my spinning wheel. Now, I admit fully that it is very possible, because I have been spinning since 2014, so that was 5 years ago, and I bought my wheel secondhand. I don't know how long the previous owner had had it. This is the original drive band that came with the wheel. It is very possible that this just gave out, like this was just its lifespan and that was it. But he might have encouraged it a little bit. I think that's more likely the case. So I can't totally get mad at him, but still, I was like, no, I was like right in the middle of this project. I have heard, I don't see how this would work, but maybe I'll try it because there's nothing to lose. I've heard with this material, you can use like crazy glue and somehow it like bonds it. I don't know, I might try that. But I have found a Canadian source for Magicraft replacement parts, and so I will have to order a new drive band, but it's going to take time for it to get here. So my spinning has kind of been putting on hold. So I am sorry, Vanessa, there's been a little bit of a pause with your project, but I know you're in the middle of moving, so I don't think you'll mind that there's going to be a little bit of delay of getting this project finished and sent back to you. But yeah, this is my little spinning story with my troublesome cat, Mr. T, which stands for, if you're a new viewer, Mr. Trouble, because he is trouble. So finally, I don't have a collection for you this week. This is kind of a question and chat week, but I got the idea. I was watching Steph on the Knitting Samurai and her guys podcast, and not her most recent episode, but the one before that, she did this thing that was like 50 random facts. So she just kind of talked about 50 random things about herself. And yeah, I just thought it was a really fun thing. There was a lot of things she said that I was like, oh, me too, me too. I can totally identify with that. And it was just fun learning about things that you wouldn't necessarily find out otherwise, because it's not stuff that you would normally talk about. So I decided to be inspired by you, Steph, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to break mine up a little bit. I'm going to do 10 at a time. So I'm going to do 10 random things in this episode, and then if there's future question and chat episodes where I don't have a specific topic I want to talk about, I'm going to throw in another 10 random things. So this week I have 10 random things for you about myself, and for the discussion down below, I encourage you to share one random thing about yourself too, and that will just be fun for me to get to know you guys a little bit better too. So here we go. It's my first 10 random facts about myself. So my first thing is my middle name. Some of you might know this, but a lot of you probably don't. My middle name is Siobhan, and to this day, when I am writing it out, I still have to say it to myself phonetically to remember how to spell it. That seems a little weird, but if you're not familiar with how you spell Siobhan, I will put it down below. But yeah, even though it's been my name, my middle name all my life, I still have to say it to myself phonetically to spell it out. My next thing, my top 3, okay, so 3 movies that I could watch over and over and over and over again and never get bored of are The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and then Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It has to be that one. All the other ones, I'm sorry, are just not the same. We watched that one again recently, and it just renewed my love of it, and I could watch it again tonight if we had to. The next thing, okay, so my favorite color growing up, so whenever as a child, or I don't know how long it lasted, but whenever you were asked, oh, what's your favorite color? Or you had to write down what your favorite color was, I would always say turquoise. And as much as I do like that color, the main reason that was my favorite is because I loved spelling it. I just love the spelling of that color, and so that's why I would say it was my favorite color. Okay, so when I am sleeping, I cannot have anything on my feet. It doesn't matter if it's the dead of winter and it's freezing, or if it's the summer and it's boiling hot. I cannot have socks on my feet. I cannot wear anything on my feet, but they have to be covered. And this goes back, I don't know how far. I always remembered thinking that if my feet were exposed, that something could grab them. So like, you know, when you're little and there's like monsters under the bed, yeah, if your feet were exposed, something could grab your feet. So even to this day, I have to have my feet covered, but they can't be wearing anything. So sometimes in the summer when it's really, really hot, there'll be no blankets on the bed, but I will have like a sheet over my feet because they have to be covered. The next thing, I learned to drive when I was 31. I had opportunities when I was a teenager. Most people learn to drive around 16 and they're looking forward to it. And yes, I had opportunities. If you ask my mom, she will say that they tried so very hard to get me to learn when I was a teenager. But we lived in Toronto. It's a big city. Public transit there is pretty extensive, and I just never really needed to learn. I could get to school on the bus. My friends, eventually they learned how to drive, so I had ways of getting around. And then I went to university out of town, and it just wasn't, like, it's hard to have access to a car when you're in a different city attending university to learn. So I just didn't end up learning. And even when I came back, it wasn't until we moved here, and we are in a small town with the buses that run like every 30 minutes and not on weekends and not in evenings and stuff, that I finally learned. So when I was 31 is when I got my license. The next thing, I have never broken any bones. Knock on wood. Let's see, there's a chair there. Knock, knock, knock. I have never had to gone to the hospital for anything broken, and to this day I have not broken any bones. The only time I've been to the hospital is when I had Avery. But yeah, I have never broken anything. But that leads to my next thing. I have 2 scars on my face. And one I think is pretty visible. The other one kind of blends into my freckles. One of them I think I should have gotten stitches for. I'll have to ask my mom about this. I think she's mentioned this, that one of them I probably should have gone and gotten stitches for. And then one of them I remember, so the one on my forehead, I remember getting hit with a shovel. Some friends and I were playing in the snow, and they kind of swung a shovel and it went into my forehead and it's gashed me. The other one I don't remember. I think I was too young, and apparently I fell on some sort of metal toy and I split my lip. But yeah, I have 2 scars. And bonus fact for you, Avery has 2 scars on her face too. So she has one from our old grumpy cat, and then she also, when she was 18 months, she went headfirst into the corner of an ottoman and split her her bottom lip, and that did need stitches. So she's got 2 scars too. Next thing, I do not like the majority of legumes. So think things like chickpeas, like kidney beans, lentils, those kinds of things. And it's not because of the taste. The taste doesn't bother me. I do not like the texture of them. I do not like the texture, that kind of like, I don't know how to describe that, pasty. I can't do it. I do not like those types of legumes. I am a Cancer. My zodiac sign is a Cancer, and for the most part, I would say that I fit into a lot of the personality traits associated with a Cancer, except for the moods. Everything will say that Cancers are extremely moody, and I don't see that at all. Like, even if you ask Dennis, he's like, the one thing that makes me easier to deal with, I guess, is that I am very level. I do not get moody. So that's the only thing that is kind of not true with that. But otherwise, I'm a pretty true Cancer. And then finally, the 10th thing. I absolutely cannot deal with a full inbox. So if I see your email inbox and it's got like 576 emails in there, it makes me twitch. Everything in my inbox is either something that is new or that has to be dealt with immediately. Otherwise, it gets put into, I make folders for everything. I have a folder category for every type of email. And if it's not something that can be deleted right away, it goes into a folder. So my inbox is like just the bare minimum. And the same goes for my desktop screen on my computer. Like Dennis's laptop has like these little icons everywhere. I can't deal with it. So my screen, I have folders for everything, every kind of file, every kind of photo, every kind of, PDF, anything that might be downloaded and show up on your main screen. I have a folder for it, and everything goes into a folder. So I can, in other ways of my life, I am not that organized, but for some reason, email and home screen, I cannot deal with a messy inbox or home screen. So those are my first 10 random things. I hope you found that enjoyable. And again, please share something down below, a little random fact about yourself. And again, any comment on any of my videos goes towards a monthly draw that I do for my shop for a $20 coupon. And that is it for this week. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I hope you get lots of crafting done. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.